Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Saskatchewan Wildlife Federation Youth Conservation Leadership Speaker Series. I'm Shannon, for those of you who don't know, the Education Director here at SWF, and today I'm joined by Rebecca Eberts from the Ministry of Environment. Thank you very much for coming to talk to us, Becca.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Fantastic. So first of all, introduce yourself. Tell me what you do. Who are you?
Yeah, so again, my name's Rebecca Eberts. A lot of folks know me as Becca, but yeah, I'm a fisheries biologist with the Ministry of Environment. So I work with our fisheries unit in the fisheries management section. So a little bit more detail, I am responsible for managing fisheries in one of our five management regions within the province. And my region is around Prince Albert, so kind of the east central part of Saskatchewan.
Wow, that seems like I didn't realize there was just 5 regions. That's a lot of territory to cover.
Yep.
Okay, so what are some of the common activities that you do for your job? For those of us who don't really know what fisheries biologists do, like what do you do on a daily?
Yeah, so most of what I do is studying and monitoring fish populations within my region, and there's a lot of waters, as you can imagine. And then I'm analyzing that data from surveys and making recommendations on how to manage those populations sustainably. So that's kind of the theme of my job, but
Yeah.
I do a lot more than that. I spend a lot of time working with the public and communicating to the public and responding to inquiries. So people have a lot of questions about why we do what we do and what we do, and so I spend a lot of time just communicating what we do too. So
Yeah, absolutely. Answering tons of questions. I can only imagine.
yes,
A lot
yes.
more than I have on my list anyway. So what was it that made you interested in being a fisheries biologist? Is this something that you just like woke up one day and were like, yeah, I'm totally going to do this? Or were like you pining over this your whole life? Like,
Oh, that's a good question. I didn't know this type of job existed when I started going to school. I knew I loved animals. I figured out that being a biologist was a thing. So I knew I wanted to be a biologist, but I didn't know that fisheries biology was a thing until much later on in my university program. And I've always had a love for fishing. I spent a lot of time fishing, and I think that's probably what led me to pick fisheries. I love fish, and I was always curious about them, learning more about their behaviors. So just tied the two things, fishing and biology, and that's where it took me. So
that's awesome. So you're taking stuff that you like to do in your regular life and making a job out of it. That's awesome. Yeah, fisheries is
yeah.
not something I think of when I first came to Saskatchewan either. It was kind of, but there's a huge fishing industry here. So what kind of steps did you have to take to get where you are today? Like what kind of schooling did you do? Were there any like special certificates, like that kind of thing?
Yeah. So I took the university route. So I started doing a bachelor's of science at the U of R. And at that point, I didn't know I was going to be a fisheries biologist. I just started in biology. I actually wanted to be a veterinarian. So for the first 2 years, I was taking all these prerequisites, but you'll find when you go to university, a lot of these prereqs can be used for other degrees. So it was really easy for me to just carry out a biology degree and adjusted a bit to get more experience in fisheries. So that's the route I took, and I did a Bachelor of Science honors. So an honors project is kind of like a mini master's. It's a 2-semester research project, and it's a great opportunity if you aren't sure whether you want to go into research and become a research professional or even a professional biologist. Usually that means research. So the honors program really helped me figure out that I like research, I want to do this. And then so after my bachelor's, I chose to go on and get a master's, and that's not necessarily a requirement, but in fisheries biology and a lot of professional biologist jobs, a master's is kind of the standard that you need, if not more. So I did a master's. So that was about 2.5 years of schooling, and I chose a project that was really specific and applicable to my area of interest. So at that time, I did a project on lake whitefish, and it was all about looking at the population structure of whitefish and how it relates to fisheries management regions. So that's what kind of got me in the fisheries community, is working on a project that has those applications. So a lot of schooling, but it was a lot of fun. Like,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's all kinds of hands-on, and it's really cool that you did an honors too. So it kind of gave you an idea of what a master's would look like, kind of thing.
Exactly. If you were thinking about doing a master's, do an honors first, and then you'll know whether it's worth the time commitment and
That's very good
financial
advice.
commitment.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. So, okay, so right now it's, I don't know where I am, it's like -48 with the wind chill out.
Yeah.
It's freezing cold. We're in February. So obviously you have different things that you do when you're on season and field season versus like right now. So like, is there a huge difference? Like, what are you doing? What are you working on in the wintertime versus in the summertime?
Yeah, there's quite a big difference, but there's always field work that can be done. So I wouldn't go out with this kind of weather, but we still do winter field work. But our busiest times during the summer, we spend a lot of our time outdoors doing fisheries surveys. This is typically some type of netting survey. The methodology will vary depending what our question is, but usually we're going to a lake and we're setting nets, and then we're sampling the fish that we catch and taking a bunch of samples to analyze later. And that's the bulk of our summer. And so I'll have several surveys in my region, but there'll also be other surveys going on in the program. And we're a small unit. So even if your survey season isn't busy, you're going to be busy midsummer because you're helping other people. So it's kind of fun because I get to travel all over Saskatchewan and sampling different fisheries. So that's the summer, and that runs from May to October. And so we have, in the spring, we generally do spawning surveys. And then in October, sometimes we have some fall spawn camps. So it's a long field season. And then in the winter,
by the sounds of it.
yeah, the winter, I would say it slows down, but it doesn't. It just kind of changes. We're in the office, analyzing all that data, writing the reports, making the recommendations. And then winter seems to be a time where we get a lot of questions from the public. So everyone's not fishing, they're inside, right. And we get a lot of inquiries. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, winter slows down, but it's just doing the data end of it, which is also extremely busy. It's just, yeah, by the time spring rolls around, we're itching to get back out and get on the water. So
I can only imagine. It sounds like a lot of fun. So,
yes.
Okay, so theoretically, if I decided that I wanted to be a fisheries biologist today, what are some of the skills and things that you think I should work on to get there? You know, is there anything that when you got into it, you were like, oh man, I really should have worked on, I don't know, my communications better when I was, you know, in university, or yeah, like what kind of things would you suggest?
Yeah, so you really hit on the most important one, is communications. Everyone thinks you need to know, okay, I want to be a fisheries biologist, I need to know a lot about fish. That's true. And yes, you need experience in the field, but once you learn that, you know, that stuff's easy compared to working with people and communicating. So you really need to be able to have good communication skills and be able to work with different types of people. So if it was me, I would work on getting those opportunities to communicate, you know, giving presentations or working in teams, working with different types of people, writing as well, not just speaking.
Important.
So you're often put in challenging situations where you can't make everyone happy, and you just have to accept that and you have to navigate it. So you have to be comfortable talking to people. So communication's above everything. And I think that applies to any job, especially if you're gonna, you know, work in government where you are talking to a lot of people and explaining things. Yeah, but you know, in your meantime, learn about fish and make sure you got the education, and try and connect with other people in fisheries so that you can learn more about specific skills that you need to know for that type of job. So
yeah, well, since you mentioned that, what is there any kind of organizations that you would recommend getting involved with if this was something you were interested in that you wanted to do?
Yeah, so the best way to learn is to actually get some experience doing it. And when you come out of high school or university, it's hard to get a job. Like, you can't assume you're going to get a job. So you're going to find yourself needing to volunteer, and that goes a long way. So I would definitely recommend getting involved with organizations who are doing what you're interested in. So we're talking about fisheries biology today. When I was in university, I volunteered with the Saskatchewan Wildlife Federation, and they really helped me. The SWF has a fisheries program, a whole program dedicated to enhancement and conservation. Yeah, and that's the program I volunteered with, and it was great for me. I got to connect with other fisheries professionals. Yeah, you know, and it was more than just fisheries biology. I got to have experience working with an organization, and I got a lot of speaking opportunities. And honestly, that experience was invaluable. So I would, if you're interested in conservation, I would certainly consider the SWF as one option to volunteer, get involved with. That's a good place to start, but there are others. There's another program called Trout Reach that does aquatic conservation and research, and they're a good one to get involved with. And then there's like a lot of professional memberships that you can get within fisheries and other fields. So the American Fisheries Society is a good one. If you're a little bit more advanced in your fisheries biology career, and that's because they kind of set the standards for everything, well, not everything, but a lot of North American fisheries management. So if you have a membership with them, you have access to all these resources that explain like our sampling methods and different protocols that a lot of fisheries units use. So that's kind of a more professional one to join. But yeah, just start by getting connected with a community near you. So
That's really cool though. That's one I hadn't heard tell of before. So that's really neat. Thanks.
yeah.
Okay, so obviously you're a fisheries biologist now, but if you weren't a fisheries biologist, you mentioned that you thought you wanted to go into like become a vet. But if you weren't a fisheries biologist right now, would you be a vet, or what would you do?
I think I'd still be in biology. I don't know. It'd probably still be aquatic related, but maybe wildlife biology. But I really enjoy doing research, and I don't think I would have got away from that. So yeah, I'd probably still be a biologist, just might be a different, maybe marine biology.
Yeah.
But yeah, biology is a lot of fun. So
It is a lot of fun, and it gives you a lot of opportunities to be outside. So if you love to be an outdoor person, then it's kind of perfect. So speaking about that, what kind of person would you recommend going into this? Like somebody who loves fish, or somebody who just likes hanging out outside, or like who's the perfect person to become a fisheries biologist?
yeah, well, it depends who you're working for. I know there's different types of jobs. Some jobs are more office jobs, some jobs are more field jobs. My job is definitely a lot of field work. So you have to be comfortable with being outside, being on the water in like usually not the best conditions. We rarely get a nice day when we're doing our
Yeah.
work. It's cold and rainy and wavy. I get seasickness, even though I'm in this job. So
No,
it's gotta be
no,
something
that's
that you're
true.
okay with in Saskatchewan. I know it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
So you got to be comfortable working on the water, being on a boat, driving a boat. So if
Mhm.
you aren't driving a boat already, but you go fishing, maybe start practicing that and make sure
Learn
you
how to
get
do that. Yeah.
get your license to do that and just start practicing being able to drive a truck and a trailer, those types of things. So, but overall, you got to like the outdoors. You got to be comfortable going to remote places, and you have to like fish because you're going to be handling a
That's
lot of
right.
fish, and it's not pretty. Like it is not a
Yeah.
glorious job.
You're very
So
smelly and stinky and slimy and
yeah,
yeah.
exactly. So be comfortable with that. If you don't like any of those things, it's probably not the right choice for you.
Okay, perfect. That's really good advice. Okay, so I've got one more question for me, and then I've got one from the audience. So if you were going to give advice to a high school student right now, or somebody maybe just in university, first year university student, what kind of advice would you give to them just in general about, getting out, getting fieldwork experience, becoming a fisheries biologist, working with the government, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I think my number one advice would be to get involved with the community who's already doing that, because you just can't figure it out on your own. So try and surround yourself with people who've already done this. And we've already mentioned a few groups where you can do that, but there's just a lot to be said about networking and being a part of a community where you can meet other people, and those opportunities will just find you.
Yeah.
So yeah, that would be my first step, is find a community, whether it's an SWF branch or some other kind of program, or maybe something at your school. That's what I would do as a first step, so you don't feel alone in kind of navigating this.
Absolutely. Those connections are really important, and they're going to help you throughout your schooling and career and
Yes.
on and on and on. Yeah, absolutely. That's great advice. Okay, so I do have a question from the audience, and they are wondering, they say, okay, walleye, northern pike, yellow perch, and lake trout are top species for Saskatchewan anglers. In your opinion, are there any other angler opportunities, other species that anglers are like for anglers that are underused or underappreciated, that aren't kind of heard of very often?
Yeah, that's a good question. There's actually so many. And I know, like, I'm an angler myself. I love fishing and I fly fish as well, which is kind of its own little
Oh, cool.
niche. Yeah, so there's so many. So those are the four most popular, and they're great to fish for. And there's all different ways you can fish for them. But there's others. There's things like the burbot, which is a really underappreciated species, which is really cool. It's really good tasting if you're interested in keeping
Really?
fish to eat. Yes,
Cool.
they're delicious, and they're an excellent species to fish for in the winter. Um, you could fish for something like whitefish. It's not that popular in Saskatchewan, but in other provinces, angling for whitefish is really popular. So I'm not sure why more people don't do it, but they're also great eating.
Yeah.
And we've also got a variety of stock trout lakes. So we've got 5 different species of stock trout that we stock. So that's something completely different. But trout they're difficult to fish for. They can be finicky, but they're gorgeous and they're fun to see.
They
So
could be really
that's like
beautiful.
7 different species I listed. But then
Yeah.
there's also all these other like white sucker and longnose sucker and other species that maybe you're not eating, but they're still fun to angle for. Like I'm someone who likes to catch a bunch of different species for diversity and just to see them up close. So
Yeah.
yeah, give it a try. If you ever have any questions, I'm sure SWF will help you, or you can reach out to me. But
Absolutely.
there's
That's a really good point.
tons
So if
of
anybody
species.
has any more questions for Rebecca, feel free to reach out to us and we'll get them to her. But yeah, well,
Yes.
thank you so much. Thank you for coming on and talking to us today. For those of you who are watching, we're gonna be talking to somebody, a new professional next week. So tune in, take a look at our Facebook page. Thanks.
Thank you.